Welcome to the Easton Forum. Incredibly excited to be here with everyone this morning. Our guest speaker today, Margaret's been a friend for a while, and excited to have her present to our team, our core team. So when we envisioned the Economic Development Council a number of years ago, this was it. It was meeting in person, cultivating relationships between the business community and government, and having open and honest conversations about where things are, where we're going. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you, Isabella, Lisa, the team at the Chamber. You're strong and great partners, and we're looking forward to continued success throughout the years. Stephanie, our Director of Economic Development, Dottie, our board chair. Regrettably, Mark Lamb couldn't be here today. He's our another select board member, but chair of the Economic Development Council. So he sends his regrets. It's unfortunate he can't be here. So I'm going to try to step up and try to play a good MC and host for our kick butt team. So again, we started this with wanted to build and cultivate relationships and not make this a one-off conversation. More conversation, less presentation. We want to hear from the business community what we can do as a government to help you thrive, help you grow. We don't only want to just attract new business, but we also want to help our existing foundation, which you all are. So with that, we do have a guest speaker, Margaret Lafara. She was a former city councilor in Quincy, and also active in her Chamber of Commerce, and she's here to help facilitate and connect our businesses with the resources in the state. So if everybody could join me in welcoming Margaret, I'm thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So great.
Yeah.
I think you're right, spot on. It is totally about relationships, and I didn't expect our paths to cross today. I don't know how I didn't know this is your hometown. So my name is Margaret Lofaris. I am the Regional Director for the Mass Office of Business Development. That's part of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito's executive team, under Secretary Mike Keneally in the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. My job is to connect any business, any municipality with any program, grant, or incentive we have at the Commonwealth, whether it's directly through the Commonwealth or any of our resource partners. And for sure, I want to offer that opportunity offline. I know we have some business owners here in the room that I'd be glad to really do a deeper dive into what I'm going to share today. So at Mass Office of Business Development, we lead what we call Team Massachusetts to bring those resources all together. And we spend a lot of our times recruiting businesses to the Commonwealth. So we could have a life science company going to spend $400 million and create hundreds of jobs, and that's a company that we want to recruit to the Commonwealth. Other times it's a small, hey, here's the site selection project. I'm in Massachusetts already. Where can I go? Where can I grow? And so we scale our conversations and curate them for what your business needs are. So I spend a lot of time, our site selection team is over at Mass Econ. I know your neighboring town of Mansfield is a new member of theirs saying, hey, we're trying to raise awareness of what the programs are that we have to offer. The Mass Life Science Center and Mass Bio, get a lot of the time in the news play, right? But that probably isn't the priority here of Easton businesses. And although anybody wants to land the big dogs of life science. But we do have programs that we want to share with you. It's great that you have here your Discover Easton app and your signage from that program, the Regional Pilot Grant Program. That was actually administered by our office. And so what I want to tell you is, like, anything that I'm going to touch on today, none of them are meant to be the blind essay contest, right? If I'm pinging on something that you think that makes sense to my business, we want to hold your hand and walk you through it, right? So our agency directly has a couple of programs that could be of interest, and the most economic development councils could be familiar with the Economic Development Incentive Program, and this is great and probably utilized more in the smaller towns than it is throughout the state. And that's has anyone heard of the Tax Increment Financing Agreement? No. So this is an opportunity. It's a local incentive that could be partnered with state incentives. So tax increment financing is real estate tax relief that you can offer a company. So if you had a company that was looking to make a major capital expenditure, they're going to expand on site, they're going to take, I think Stephanie, back we had done, wasn't there an older building? yet it was kind of I don't know, maybe an abandoned or blighted building, nothing happening for a while, right? And so it's like, hey, how do we incentivize this? How do we get something to go there, right? Maybe the project is probably got to be a banker in the room here, right? So maybe the project isn't penciling. So how can we help this project forward? So tax increment financing is an opportunity for the municipality to offer an incentive. You can provide, you're paying your real estate taxes today, your baseline taxes, you pay that 100%, but that new growth, hey, I'm going to add on, I'm going to do a major renovation. Think about it, you renovate your home kitchen, right? You spend 60 grand. Your house value doesn't go up 60 grand. Maybe it goes up 20 grand, 25 grand. That's the increment. The municipality can offer real estate tax relief anywhere from 5 to 100% over a schedule of 5 to 20 years. So that can make a major difference in a project. As we work through these applications of something, geez, something's happening in town, something's percolating, I'd want to be working directly with Stephanie, and my role would be like Switzerland, right? I'm going to help the municipality do all of their paperwork, and I'm going to help the town, help the company with all of theirs. See, I'm not going to negotiate your deal, right? This is a local incentive and opportunity to offer. However, if this is a project that's bringing, I know you have some, hello, Senator. I know you have, for example, Simpson Springs is Easton, right? So it's like food manufacturing, right? Manufacturing jobs are something that are highly prioritized in the Commonwealth that we want to be incentivizing. So now say this project is having a good job creation. We have state tax credits that could be partnered to that project. So it's an economic development incentive program is one that you can take a look at. So what is it, who's expanding, who's creating that new tax base that maybe you can, give some relief to help bring that project to your community. So the regional economic development organizations, that's another one that for your region, it's Metro South Chamber of Commerce is your redo. And that's just the way that the Commonwealth supports economic development, right? You're lucky here in Easton to have Stephanie, to have such and Dottie's experience too, but you have such a powerhouse of economic development planners. A lot of smaller communities don't have that, right? And so and I think it's very important to note the Baker-Polito administration recognizes Massachusetts has 351 municipalities, right? And we want to spread our resources throughout. So being part of a REDO, a regional economic development organization, offers you opportunities to apply for additional grant programs. Something started during COVID, was recognizing how can we, put some of this federal funding out there, get it out there quick. And so we put together the programs that you very successfully leveraged with your Discover Easton campaign. But because now the program is so successful, they're keeping that on. So I want to have your wheels spinning about what else could be doing that could check those buckets. And maybe Stephanie and Dottie, maybe we'll do a call offline to talk you through that. Maybe meet with Chris Cooney just to say, we don't want to leave money on the table here. Chris is going to reapply for the redo. He does it. He's my gold star. I'll tell you, particularly during COVID. Did anyone do the Metro South regional webinars? Yeah. I was like the speaker every Friday. Chris Cooney had us. He had the SBA. I mean, if there was a resource that was being talked about, Chris put us on Zoom, and it was a real opportunity. And I think, it's important to note, too, the attendance that I stay in touch with Stephanie, with Dottie, and with your team at the municipal level, representing Secretary Keneally's office. And Secretary Keneally had a whole series of Zooms. We're now down to monthly, but I think it's so important to Matt's point. It's about relationships. Let's keep this conversation going. What's happening at the state level? What's happening at the ground level in Easton? How are we connecting those and helping you leverage the resources that we have? Also, another one to stay in tune with was the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. And I'm sure people don't look, firsthand think, where am I going on vacation? Let's go to Easton. But I think that Easton has much to offer the Commonwealth, right? I'm telling you. I mean, I don't know. I was actually listening to a little video a realtor kind of did here on my way. Like, what else should I know about Easton? I know about Ames. I know about the Shovel Factory. I've been to the Farmer's Daughter. That might be your next travel and tourism marketing campaign. I've been to Simpson Springs. But that My Local campaign, the local MA through the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, I thought, wow. Like, that's so Easton, right? What is it that's in your backyard? What is the quality of life here in your community? What is it that you have to be sharing about that helps make Easton that destination, that helps bring businesses to, customers to your downtown businesses, because they did decide to explore the Ames factory, because we're all sick of walking around in our own, stretch of the Blue Hills up in Quincy that I walk my dog in all the time, right? Like, where is it local? Where can you be going? And how can you leverage those resources? And they're very much, we're all have these regional tourism councils too, right? But they don't, let's just be real. They don't find us out in the smaller suburbs, but you do have a lot to offer. How about any hiring challenges? I think that's probably one of the most trending topics. Anybody hearing that? Anybody familiar with the team over at Mass Hire in Brockton? Yeah. So I think people don't necessarily look to the state for, hey, geez, I need help hiring, but they can do screening for your candidates. They can help with your job postings. They can do virtual job fairs. Think about you're a small business and you don't have an HR department. They can be your HR department. And so establishing those relationships, reaching out on those calls. How about, has anybody of the companies here used the Workforce Training Fund grant? Okay, people, you leave it at one. All right, you're leaving money on the table. This is the key to the low-hanging fruit for grant programs in the Commonwealth. How many business owners in the room? Okay, I want you to go look at your payroll, look at some W-2, and you're going to see a fee. WTF, Workforce Training Fund. WTF in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is the Workforce Training Fund. It's money coming out of your pockets that you pay a fee. And I think that one of the things when we talk about recruiting the big businesses to Massachusetts that we really sets us apart is, they say location, 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 and Massachusetts says talent, 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 right? And so the Workforce Training Fund is a mechanism where you're paying in on your payroll, and you can now draw out in form of a grant up to $250,000 in a 3-year rotation. That is a lot of money. Tell me, all of you who our companies here, is there something you wish your employees knew how to do or could do better or just had a little more polish around? So I'll tell you the one that just comes to mind, right? So I'm kind of in, the Secretary and Lieutenant Governor co-chaired the COVID reopening, right? And so it was like essential businesses and now getting things back going and talking about that. But man, do I wish if I could give maybe magic wand for some companies that they had people certified in HR, because things were moving, right? Every week, it's like, here's the latest, here's the latest, here's the latest. And it was a lot. It was overwhelming. And so the majority of businesses are small businesses. And so the person who's doing payroll might have picked up the ancillary duty of doing HR, but the heck if you could follow along, right? So maybe you're saying, all right, I probably should certify somebody in HR and understanding and making sure our policies are all tight. Great. You can hop online, go get an express grant, send the person up to Massasoit Community College, and get them certified on the state's dime, right? That's just like an example. What are the skill sets that you need? Do you need sales training, marketing training, leadership training? Are you a restaurant? Do you need culinary skills training? I mean, this is curated to whatever your business is. There's the express grant is up to $30,000, and this you'll pay the salary and benefits of your employees, and the training will be paid by the Commonwealth's Workforce Training Fund grant. That's just one of the programs. But honestly, I think people are like, yeah, I've heard about that. Okay, that's one more thing on my to-do list, Margaret. Like, you're going to tip the scale. I can't do it. But I just like to plant that seed because, to me, it's really one of those kind of low-hanging fruits. It's always available to you. And now when you look at your payroll, you can be like, yeah, that money's in my pocket. I should get some of this back and bring it in and reinvest in the talent that you have at your company. Let me think here. Safety training, that's probably the easiest of easiest grants to get. If I don't know business types here, but let's say you're that restaurant that could have, like knife training, or you could have chemical, you're cleaning the restaurant, some chemical training, slip and fall training. Maybe you have forklift operators. Maybe you need some OSHA training. We have a safety training grant. Might be the easiest grant application I've ever seen. It's online. It's up to $25,000. You can apply every year. It's first come, first serve. They literally have like a sample, like here's how to fill it out. Here's the John Doe standard. We filled it out for you. Here's a list of training providers and what they do for training. And you could just like pick off that menu what it would need for safety training. So it seems that you're making a little notes there. So let's talk offline about that. There's actually also a safety consultation, right? So I think these are funded by the Division of Industrial Accidents, that are saying we want to improve worker safety, we want to reduce accidents, we want to make sure we have a safe workplace. And so we'll do a safety consultation. So if OSHA would come out to your place of business, they'd look through like, ding, 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 money, 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 right? No, nobody wants to see them. But the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is like, okay, we want we want to support you in proactively. We have a team of safety consultations. You don't even need to apply for this. This is like pick up the phone, make a phone call, pick the date that works for you. They'll come out, do the same style review, but instead of like ding, 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 OSHA, here's a fine, there's no fine. This is some areas that we saw that you need improvement, and here's some opportunities to make corrections, right? So safety training, workforce training, leveraging the mass hire workforce system. Anybody, to Matt's point about kind of being dialogue, I guess it would be helpful. Any type businesses in the room, and any manufacturers in the room?
We have a manufacturing entity.
Do you know the Mass Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or the Mass MEP?
No.
Okay. What do you manufacture?
Beer.
Beer. Food manufacturer. All right. I haven't been to the Shoveltown Brewery. Okay. So food manufacturing is great. So Mass MEP, they are there they're a nonprofit, they're quasi. You can use the Workforce Training Fund grants to work with them. And what they can do is like Kaizens and Kanbans and setup reduction, or they've got a partnership with the UMass food program. And so they can come out and work with you, look for efficiencies in your process. They have a whole slew of programs. So you talk about kind of, training and needs, and I'm sure, on the safety side of things, that they'd be a great contact. So let's use yours as an example. So if I were to meet you at a networking event, what I would do is put together, probably now just on Zoom, it's easier for everybody, but a call. And I would bring for you the Mass MEP, Mass Hire, and the Director of Corporate Education at Mass Associate, and said, okay, we want to be supportive of your company. This Commonwealth has a lot of resources, and so I do a Team Massachusetts call for you with the quick people off the top of my head that can support the growth of your business. And now it's like, that's it, off and running. Mass MEP will probably come out to a site visit, and they can speak much more intelligently about all of their programs and what they can do. My job is to just know a little bit about enough of who can be helpful to you, and then it's like, no need to find the gatekeeper, no need to make a phone call, no need to hope someone calls you back. I'm going to set up the whole call for you, and they're all going to show up and be there and support your business. So just kind of helping that single point of contact coordinator to support the growth of your business at the ground level. Any other particular different business styles here?
One of my regrets is that we didn't go around the room to give you.
I know, I was kind of, yeah.
But what I can say is that, Margaret, a lot of the touch points that you had, manufacturing,
Yep.
you have restaurants, you have Northeastern Screw here, which manufactures parts for, Fortune 500 companies around the country. So
Okay.
a lot of the touch points that you hit upon were great.
They're in there?
Were
Okay.
great. But I do, and my apologies to everybody in the room, because I should have gone around the room and had everyone introduce themselves so Margaret would know who she was speaking with. So appreciate that.
So the manufacturing parts, do you connect? So the governor has a really great initiative, actually the LG, the two of them, it's kind of one of their favorites, the Career Technical Initiative, and about investing in our vocational schools. And are you connected with the vocational schools for pipeline training?
We are. We use a lot of the schools, and I guess I have an HR manager, so she knows the deep dive details of all that stuff. So like you, I know a little bit about many things, but
yeah.
we have.
And I'm glad you do. Honestly, if you do have an HR manager, that's probably the person that I want to talk to, because she kind of knows everybody in the company. It's like, okay, who can handle what? What's their capacity? What is ready? And it could be yes, but not now. Senator.
Margaret, how are you?
Very great.
Walter Timilty, State Senator Easton. I can say firsthand, I've seen it. I visited with John at his great business, manufacturing, many times. They do great work, and I've also been at Southeast Regional Technical High School many times. The manufacturing program, curriculum is A+. And John, to you, thank you for what you've done with your company. And of course, Paul, to work with manufacturing. Obviously, manufacturing is an untapped resource here, and in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we do it here, and we do it well in Easton and in surrounding towns. So my compliments to you, what you've done. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think part of it is just that's it. There's programs that are happening, there is pipeline training happening. We're saying, hey kid, college isn't the path for everybody. Here's this great opportunity for you to learn a trade, and then we want to be connected to the employers. So there's like the Governor's Workforce Skills Cabinet, like there's just a lot for you to dive into to make sure you're getting those hires. I'm happy to ask answer any questions. I mean, anything that I could be of, elaborate on, anything you're like, yeah. We've got a company that's growing, want to give a TIF and get state tax credits for, what can we do?
Hi, I'm Isabel Wilson. I'm the president of Easton Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for coming along today. And our chamber works very well with our local economic development council. I guess my question is, how small is a small business to be able to qualify for some of these grants? You know, we do have sort of like solo business owners.
Yeah.
They're, you know, say, I'm just thinking of a small family-owned business, car mechanics business, for
Yeah.
example. They maybe only have
Safety
4
training,
employees.
safety training would be great. Safety consultation, that would be great. Workforce training fund, as long as you're paying in the W-2, paying that fee, you can draw down on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the key.
And the express grant is even, would probably for those smaller ones, right? So you can go $250,000 up to $250,000 for the 3 years. But there's that $30,000 a year. The little guys, that's what you want to be going after. That's easy. Honestly, I think sometimes the people that don't use the workforce training fund grants, it's too overwhelming. What should I put on the menu? Who's going to manage the menu? How am I going to cash flow this? It's a reimbursement grant or. But the Express is pretty simple. You can hop online, the details are there. Again, I can set up a call for you. Every community college throughout the Commonwealth has a corporate education director. In Massasoit, you have a superstar, Mary Ellen Brett, and she'll do a call with you too. Okay, what is it? Where are your training needs? What are your pain points? What do we have in our courses that could be valuable for you? For the Mass MEP, they'll come out and come on site and do your training. In your facility, right? So some of you in these life science companies will bring a biomanufacturing program out of Quincy College on site to use the company's equipment and train their employees there, that they'll use the curriculum from the college programs that have been heavily invested in here. Yes.
Margaret, once again, Walter Timothy, State Senator Easton. To each and every business here, my office, we're adept at navigating the grant process with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Of course, I and Rep. Doherty and myself, we've all voted to fund those grants, but my office is very adept at navigating the process. So if anybody needs any assistance in navigating that process, myself and my team, we're happy to jump in. We do it frequently.
I'm constantly getting referrals out of the various electeds' office too, right? Especially kind of out of COVID. Hey, here's the constituent that came across. Could you, take some time? So I'm always glad, Senator, Representative, if you're glad to send someone my way that I can be helpful to.
Well, thank you very much.
That's all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Margaret. So I hope the one takeaway with Margaret, and obviously welcome Senator Timilty, Representative Doherty. Be remiss if I didn't mention we've got our town manager, town administrator Connor Reed here as well. You have resources, you have relationships. It just takes a phone call. I would tell you, we're going to kind of segue into like the post-COVID discussion and some of the pain points that you've seen. But when we talk about inflationary costs and all the levers that are pressing business right now, knowing you have that WTF fund, which is an incredible resource for businesses. If you pay into the fund, you have that. And if you're looking to augment some of your costs, it's as simple as filling out some paperwork, having a specific program that you want to bring your workforce, whether it's Northeastern Machine or Margaret, you have a few other places to go in Easton. We have Shoveltown Brewery, best beer. And then you have, when you talk about marketing post-COVID, Neil and what he did at McGuire's, if you could tell the governor and the LG and Secretary Keneally that take a look at McGuire's Facebook page and the way that Neil handled it and the way he messaged to the community, it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. So Neil could, thank you very much for all you do, and you kind of set a high bar for, everyone to kind of strive towards, and you've done an amazing job. So pleasure to have you. So post-COVID, business is tough. I know on my side, the business I work in is construction, energy services, and the inflationary costs that we're all feeling across the board is hit us pretty hard. But we want to have a conversation now. Like, what are some of the pain points that you're dealing with now that we could make our senators, our state representatives, our elected officials, our executive team aware of, that we may be able to brainstorm some ideas? Is there anything outside of the obvious, almost $5 a gallon for gasoline, cost of everything's going through the roof, supply chain issues, but what are some of are there any highlights? I know, Neil, obviously you did a phenomenal job just working through it and keeping your people working and finding a way to, make ends meet and stay in business. And for all of us, that's an incredible accomplishment. It really is. And but how do we work together to help thrive and grow? Are there anything that it comes to mind of anyone in the room? So.
I was going to say, you touched on some of the obvious ones. The cost of goods going up, and really the item pricing not really, having that much flexibility to adjust our prices is a big impact. But I think also, what we saw was that a lot of our staff didn't want to come back to work because they were being paid. They had the unemployment and the unemployment benefits and so it took a while until those ran out or people started to get those people back. And by the way, it was tough because the business wasn't, didn't come back. It still hasn't necessarily come back to the level that it was before. And so it's more difficult to fund those people and back into the business. So if there was a way where unemployment, and maybe there even is, I think we heard some of this, but to partially pay them for the time that they couldn't work, and that would have helped, I think. And even if that was available, it wasn't well known, so everyone was saying, well, why would I go back to work? I'm gonna, just collect.
Do you know about Workshare?
Workshare? No.
Do you want me-
Yeah, I think I do know that.
So one of kind of a little late to share it now, but Mass Hire has a Workshare program. So a lot of that was during COVID became really popular. Geez, I need to keep my staff. My staff are trained. I love my staff, but I can't give them 40 hours a week right now, but I can take them 2 days a week. Workshare allows, through the Mass Hire system, allows you to pay that employee 2 days a week, and that employee to then collect unemployment for the other 3. That saved a lot of businesses as they were able to do that, keeping their staff benefits, because not only the staff actually made out, so you got to keep your employee what you could afford. They got unemployment for the other 3 days. They got their benefits from you. However, when that federal benefit kicker was in, they got that too, right? So now this was kind of worked both for the employer and for the employee to their help.
But I don't think that was well known, and so the employees were
Yeah.
scared to come back because they felt they were going to lose their benefits.
And then you could onboard them back. Let's say you totally laid somebody off. You could onboard them back or bring somebody on through the Workshare program too. Yeah, this is why we're out kind of doing these road shows, right? And we really try to say, get out there and message these programs, because you're right. I agree. People don't know about them as well as they should, and I've spent more time on Zoom kind of saying, call me about this. It's helpful.
Being able to meet in person again is definitely a benefit, to be able to have conversations like this. So if anybody has any, offline questions, want to set up a meeting, I'm sure between the team in here, whether it's the senator's office or Margaret's office or the town's office, we can help facilitate. So this isn't a one-off conversation. If something comes up after the meeting that you want to discuss, let's facilitate a conversation and see if we can help support, your business grow and thrive. So that said, we're discovering Easton today too. So Select Board Chair Dottie Fulgenetti, if you could tell us a little bit about the app. Oh, we also have, if you could all just grab a business card, pull it out, send it to the end of the table. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to pull one person's card out, and you're going to have Red Sox tickets to the game. You'll pick the game. We'll figure that out. And I can't make any promises, but I may be able to get you on the field before the game if the schedules work for you. So get those business cards over to us, please.
Thanks, Dan. So thanks, everybody, for being here today. We don't want to really go back and remember COVID too much, but during that period of time when everybody had to take another look at the way they were doing business and try to reinvent themselves and work together, we had a campaign called Easton Outside that Neil really and the Chamber and the Economic Development Council worked very hard to lead. And so that was about getting people to realize that they could go out, they could go to restaurants, they could go shopping. They just need to bundle up a little bit more in the winter to do that. And so that campaign was happening at the time the Mass Office of Business Development was putting out their local pilot program grant. So for my real day job, I work with Old Colony Planning Council as an economic recovery planner. And Old Colony Planning Council put out to our 17 communities, one of the criteria was that at least 2 communities had to work together. So it was a very quick deadline. We sent out an email. We said, who has ideas and wants to work together on a project? Let us know what it is. So 4 communities came back to us and said, we want to do what Easton's doing. And so we looked at how could we capitalize on the momentum being built by the Easton Outside campaign and take that to the next level. And so what we decided to do was to do this new app called Discover Easton, and then there was Brockton City of Champions, Discover Stoughton, and Discover Avon. So we worked on 4 communities at the same time in a really short amount of time. It was an incredible project to work with 4 different communities to see what they thought and what they valued. Primarily, we were looking for a way that businesses could get their name out there for free and advertise. And so it was not only to create the app, but also to promote it and the marketing that went with that. So the app, the software developer that we used, we looked at a lot of them, but this one had extras that we liked from a municipal perspective. So you can go onto the app and you can look up, where do I want to go for banking and finance? Where do I want to go for restaurants? But you can also look up what are the fun things to do in Easton? Where are the hiking trails? Where are the museums? Things like that. So we have about 1,200 downloads now. It's free for anybody to download on the Apple or the Google Play. And but we really need people to be using it. So we want the businesses also to have a flyer and say to their people, hey, did you download the app? Because I look through on restaurants and say, oh, McGuire's, and I click on it and the menu will come up. The businesses can customize the way they want their business to be showing in there. If you have a specific link that you want, like your menu, or how to contact us or things like that. You can also put in specials, like Mother's Day special, temporary things. The business can claim their site and do that. So it's been very successful. I've spoken about it at a lot of different things, like Mass Municipal, and other communities all over the state have been asking about how they can get into that. So we're really grateful to the work that Old Colony Planning Council, Mass Office of Business Development, and the Metro South and Easton Chamber, because they helped us with those businesses. One of the other things that I thought of when we were talking to businesses during that period of time is people were really depressed. It was really, really hard to see the business that you worked hard to develop all those years be stuck in that position. There was a lot of worry. So to have people that came to the front and came to these bi-weekly Easton Outside meetings with the chamber, with the town, inspiring each other to just keep going, work together. I can't underestimate that enough. And you also were role models, not just to people in this community, but to people in other communities that were seeing this. So in the beginning, when you asked who's a business owner, and that little girl raised her hand, our littlest guest today, I was just blown away by that, because you know what? That's how people, they look and they model and they see people that run businesses and they say they want their business to be like that too. You can't be too young to be paying attention to that. So just want to thank everybody in the room who worked on that campaign. Also, one of the things that we're doing is connecting the app to tourism, and we have a cultural district, so we're trying to really connect tourism, economic development, and our cultural district to really bring some of that attention to Easton. So we have a short time limit, and I will pass it on to the next person. Thank you.
Thanks, Dottie. Yeah, so be one of the cool kids. Download the app if you haven't already. Share it with your friends. Frank Altieri, one of our success stories. I think you're going to share.
Yeah, sure. So,
Frank,
sure.
Do you want me to pass those out? Or?
Yeah, you can give those out.
Can I sell them?
Yeah, no, there's only 10 copies, so if you could share. So thanks for inviting me today, and thanks for listening to our story. For those of you who don't know, I'm a co-owner in a business in Easton, Shoveltown Brewery, and the business came about through our love of beer and also through our love of meeting people and interfacing with people through beer. In fact, in our mission statement was we wanted to create a place in the community where people could have entertainment and also enjoy quality beverages. So we built Shoveltown Brewery. We have two components to our business. One is basically a restaurant component. We call it a tap room, brewery, whatever, but basically it's got the same fundamentals as a restaurant. The second is the production facility and manufacturing, and which is really the background that I came from, electronic manufacturing, but manufacturing is manufacturing. You're just making another product. So we have a pretty big brew house that we built out. We started with a 3.5 barrel brewery. We went to a 5, and now we're at 15. And even the 15, we just expanded this month and put more capacity in there. We have about 7 guys in the brew house, full-time, manufacturing beer, and about 20 employees in the restaurant. Most of those, probably 12 are servers, and the rest are in the kitchen. The servers, as you know, their pay is based on tips, but the kitchen is all full-time employees, or a mixture of part-time and full-time. So I was asked to discuss a little bit about the impact that COVID had on us. And there's a chart in there, one of the first charts shows the tap room sales. And as you can see, I just kind of plotted from the beginning of March through June, or July actually. And while it's in black and white and it might be hard to see, you can make out the lower line there, and that's basically what happened in 2020. Our restaurant sales decreased by 75% in the first couple weeks of COVID. I mean, basically, I'm sure everyone's did. It was basically a shutdown period. Most of those sales that you do see in the March timeframe came from to-go sales, to-go beer and a little bit of food. Not much. It was mainly cans to go. So we started to see something happening. You know, we heard about COVID. We started to see something happening in early March. And then by the end of March, the sales were off about 75% for that month. If we look at March through July, the sales were 25% off. People started to come out, and there were some activity. A lot of it was due to the pivot to-go sales of mainly beer and cans, and to our distribution model. And then there's the other graph just shows the percentage of difference between the two. But what happened to us, we were extremely lucky. We had purchased the bigger brew system about a year in advance of COVID, and that's because you have to buy it early. They have to manufacture it and put it all together and deliver it. It takes about a year to commission the system. So we initiated the purchase back in December of 2018, and it came online on March 3rd. And then, as you know, March 15th, the bottom fell out. But it did allow us to pivot to distribution and to-go sales. Part of the purchase and implementation was an automated canning line. Before, we were canning by hand, and it was very difficult to do that. But you could see the distribution sales grew 75% in 2020. Well, it might have grown anyways. It's hard to say, but what we heard from the community, mainly liquor stores, was their sales were through the roof, and so that we were filling that need. In fact, some of the bigger breweries were having problems with labor and other things, and they couldn't fill some of the orders. So the liquor stores were buying more craft beer at that point, and people were buying it also. So that really helped us. Our distribution sales grew 75% in 2020, and so that made up for what we lost in the tap room. We were able to keep all of our full-time employees on, but obviously the tap room and kitchen, especially in March when everything was shut down, we had to lay those people off. When I looked at some of the challenges, but there were also some opportunities that came out of it. We had some supply chain disruptions, but mainly that was associated with restaurant supplies and food. The brewing supplies we contract a year out, so that stuff is all allocated pretty much. Hops you contract a year in advance for, so you have your allocation of hops, and grain was available, although the prices on grain, because we weren't contracted on the price side, we were contracted for quantity, but there's clauses in the contract that allow them to increase the pricing. We did see about an 8% price increase initially, and now it's probably around 11%. But other things were in short supply, and I'm sure people have heard about the problems that we had with cans. Most recently, CO2, although we haven't been impacted by the CO2 issue, but I have seen other breweries that have been. It may be, because of their supply chain on that side. Chemicals were in short supply. That was tough. And then packaging materials were also tough to get. Kitchen labor was unavailable. As I said before, the employees were collecting unemployment, didn't want to come back to work. And I knew about the Job Share Program, and I had talked about it, but no one else seemed to know about it, and no one would believe that it's true. And I don't think they wanted to work anyways. There was a lot of customer confusion and actually frustration with the rules and regulations that were put in place and processes. And restaurants did it all differently, so they may have had an experience at one restaurant and they want to have that same experience there, and we would have different processes, different rules. I think Neil did a really good job with that. But I think some of the opportunities that came out of that too was relaxed processes for outdoor seating, but that also allowed us we did a beer garden in Foxborough, and it allowed us to open that up. The only issue there was the weather. It didn't really cooperate, so had the summer been like this summer, it would have been a winner. But if you remember, it rained Memorial Day, 4th of July, and then just about every weekend through the summer. And it kind of really put a damper on that. Because it was outdoors, all it would take would be a thunder shower to come through at 6 o'clock, and no one would come out after that. So I'd bring staff in, and we'd have to shut it down. It also allowed us to work more closely with wholesale customers to help them sell their product inventory. So a lot of restaurants had bought, kegs of beer, and then all of a sudden they had no market for it. One of the best ones that I saw that did this was Frank Brack's in Brockton. They stayed open for to-go sales, but they also took advantage and were selling beer. And I actually had an opportunity to buy a bunch of growlers from a distributor, and I bought their whole inventory on a risk. And I went around to all my customers and said, do you want these growlers? You could sell your beer that you have in kegs to customers. And I gave them labels and everything. And that worked really well, and they were very appreciative. That built a really close relationship with those owners, because at that time it was pretty much just the owners that were working, as we talked about. And so those were my observations from what happened with COVID.
Thanks, Mike. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Why Easton?
Because I live here.
Because you live here.
That was it. We felt that Easton was a great community, good population, fairly high income level and they would really accept. And there was a gap there. There wasn't, breweries were popping up everywhere and there wasn't one in Easton. And we thought there was an opportunity.
And you're still expanding, right?
Yeah, so we're building, we're renovating a firehouse in Foxborough, and we're going to open our second location there.
And what
It's
is
going to
that?
be totally different, though. It's
Yeah.
more of a restaurant with a brewery in it.
Margaret, you have another road trip. We all do, I guess.
Did you do
Can't
mass
wait for that.
development financing? Tax
It was part of the financing package that we got.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So thank you. So many resources out there, Margaret, between mass development, all the quasi-public agencies, the old colony planning there's so much out there for us. And I guess I'll ask Connor if you could come up, and Dottie and Stephanie, and we can talk a little bit to our municipal leaders about, different initiatives that are taking place in town. I know we're tight on time, and does anybody have a hard stop over the next, say, 10 or 15 minutes? We good? Okay, excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Connor Reed.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you to the Chamber and all of our business partners for being here this morning. It's always great to see all of you. And, thank you all for what you've done to persevere and come through COVID. I remember a lot of really early morning and late night calls with Neil. The frustration with changing policies was kind of felt universally. We were all trying to flex and squeeze into a bag and figure it out. And just, internally when this was all happening, we tried to take really seriously that it was going to be a rough few years, and that we would more often than not know the answers and not necessarily be able to provide the resources immediately that the business community needed, but that we would take advantage of the pipelines we had, for instance, most of your contact information through health permits and things like that, to push information out as quickly as we were getting it. And trying to just work with people and have a sense of patience and grace with how hard it was for so many of you. So thank you all for everything you did to keep your businesses going, to keep your employees on payroll, and to keep the community moving. That was really incredible work you all did. So as far as what Easton's investing in, I'll start with sorry for having to drive across town. We are investing historic amounts in our infrastructure, which is great, but I'm not going to try and say that it's fun to drive through while it's getting built, so thank you all for your patience. But the past 10 years, we invested approximately $50 million in kind of classic infrastructure, sewer in particular, water, roads, including in this corridor, Foundry Street, Five Corners. Many of you live here, you work here, you travel here. Appreciate your patience and support. That was a great coming together of a business and resident and governmental community. And since before COVID, we've seen permit activity grow by more than 20% now in Easton. There's lots of construction. Some of that's obviously just broader economic realities. A lot of folks stuck at home looking at their kitchens for 6, 12 months at a time, deciding it's time to make a change. But there's new construction happening, there's new development happening following those infrastructure investments, which is great to see. Right now, we're managing approximately $140 million in capital investments focused on transportation. Again, sorry for Depot Street. I live right off of it, so I feel your pain every day. But it's going to be a huge and transformative multimodal transportation project. When it's done, that paving should be coming through this fall. We have our early elementary school, Blanche A. Ames, will be being completed in October. We'll move in for January. That is on time. It's under budget, which is not a phrase you get to say frequently in public construction, particularly during COVID. So that will, it did, thanks to, yes, thank you. Yeah, and that was pretty incredible. A lot of your essential businesses, you didn't stop working during COVID, and neither did we. We did, these construction projects through COVID, and there was, some silver lining there. It's easier to dig a 30-foot trench in a really narrow road when no one's driving. So Blanche Ames coming in, that's going great. And as we move into the next 10 years, things that we're going to be focusing on that, Dottie touched on is, making more of a concerted effort locally to connect the dots with tourism and a lot of the historic, architectural, and cultural resources that Easton does have, so that when folks do think of traveling, it's not we live and work here. No, we don't think people are necessarily booking a vacation trip here, but we want to change that mindset. And so we're at a period of investment, not just from a more traditional infrastructure perspective, but we're looking at it from a tourism and kind of human service perspective, that there's a lot of exciting stuff going on, particularly in the cultural district. The Oaks Ames Hall is going through plans for a complete renovation, not just for historic preservation, for keeping that a beautiful asset, but actually turning it into a truly functioning venue with parking, so folks can go and enjoy this venue and drive development and economic activity, not just for the hall, but for the businesses in that area and throughout the region. And so we're actually piloting this fall and winter a position, a cultural district liaison, whose job it will be to work with the chamber and the folks in that area and eventually throughout town to highlight all of the major improvements going on, not just downtown, but in Easton. You have the hall, you have the brewery, you have the Y. There's so many incredible kind of community and business ingredients already there. And to Margaret's point and all of our points, one of the things we struggle with, I think, most in government is just communicating and getting these things out, just helping raise awareness that these things exist. You're all doing the real work and creating these great kind of assets, and we'll be bringing someone in just to try to basically network and help elevate that. So we think that that'll be a really exciting opportunity. The trustees of reservations are going through some renovations there for an outdoor pavilion for performances. You have that, you have a brewery. There's just so many great ingredients down there. So, and then the last thing I want to touch on as far as updates is, as we wrap up the Blanche Ames School construction project, we are in the thick of feasibility and moving into schematic design to replace police, fire, and public works in Easton. Those are all 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old facilities. That's going to be another really kind of ambitious project with a lot of moving pieces, but one of the things that can be interesting for the community, the business community, is that as we reinvest in and move our real estate pieces around, that could open up opportunities for reuse and redevelopment of buildings or sites we may no longer need publicly. So a lot of good projects going on. All of you have been incredibly supportive and super, super patient. I hope your tires are doing all right, and happy to take any questions about any of the work we're doing. Thank you all for what you're doing.
Quick question pops into my head is, why is there no hotel in Easton?
That is a wonderful question. We are trying. We are trying to get folks to the table. I always try to remind myself, we in the public sector ought to have a sense of humility that I can't just will that. If I could, I would say put that hotel right there. But we have to bring folks to the table and create the incentives, whether through tips, zoning change, sewer. The lack of sewer historically would have been a major impediment to that. So we were having some productive conversations, and then COVID hit. So hopefully, as we're coming out of this together, we have these infrastructure investments in place. We're working on these zoning reforms and trying to get the right people at the table to move that forward, including looking at financing deals. We wanted to.
But also, I just want to add that when we want to seek out certain types of businesses or industries, we prepare for that through the Planning and Economic Development Department. So expedited permitting, sewer, infrastructure, it's designated in certain areas. So the Queeset District, which is between Stonehill and Depot Street, or the Five Corners District from the Five Corners down to Target, those are areas that were, really targeted for investment. So those are the places that we look, and when they're ready to go, that's when people will come forward with their business opportunities. So we are perfectly positioned right now to attract development for a hotel, and we've got all the partners in line for that.
And McGuire's in.
I think on that point, that's one of the things that's kind of inspiring, bringing a cultural district liaison on board. And in May, when we're thinking about potentially a multi-million-dollar CPA investment for the hall, it's not just the kind of classic CPA investment. I think it makes a lot more sense, although I'm not a hotel developer, it's a lot easier to make the financing work and make those assessments work for the customer base if there is a fully fledged functioning wedding venue with parking down the street than when there's not. right? So we have a lot of amazing restaurants with a lot of great architectural and historic resources. We want to try and elevate the venue space. You have the trustees doing their thing. You have these ingredients coming together in the general recovery, and hopefully that can help get us over the line. That's the goal.
We're all facing, most industries are facing the similar challenges. Cost of goods, tight labor market, and a post-COVID environment. I know local government can't do much for inflation, but I think there's a drastic need for like small A affordable housing, not necessarily subsidized housing, but the type of living space that someone who's working in the supermarket, someone who's going to work in my restaurant, someone who's going to work in Frank's Brewery, someone that's going to work in your screw manufacturing facility can live close by. And again, I know that you cannot say we're going to make this, affordable apartments, but anything that you can do legislatively or just through zoning to encourage that type of housing, that'll help our labor issue much. Because one of the things I look at is like, I got a guy that can really cook really well, but he lives in Fall River, and he can't afford a $1,800 a month apartment in Easton. He can afford $800 a month
if he
apartment.
can even find that. Right. Yeah. No. So we agree, and I think it's really edifying. I think for myself, for Stephanie, for Dottie, we are all advocates for affordable housing for a whole variety of reasons.
Right.
Just the dignity of having the ability to live somewhere that you choose, but it's also a major economic development linchpin, and it's really edifying to hear the business community highlight that and champion it, because as I'm sure many of you in this room know, and the culture is changing, these projects are not always met with celebration.
I understand.
Right?
But you've done a tremendous job, with the sewer, with the zoning issues, like rezoning and the sewer, all that's helping, but I just want to stress that from our standpoint.
Yes, and small A affordable is really important.
Yeah.
So Stephanie has been working on zoning.
Quickly talk about zoning.
Yes.
So while the town was working on all these infrastructure improvements and investments to make the area, provide the capacity for new growth in these districts, the planning department, working with the planning board, was ensuring that the zoning would support the type of development that we're looking for in these areas. And I will answer your question in just a minute. And that included the vision for all of these three particular target economic growth areas, which include the Northeastern Village, the Queeset Commercial District, as well as the Five Corners Furnace Village District, is that these be walkable neighborhoods that are connected to commercial areas, commercial businesses where people can do business, they can dine, they can eat, they can go to work, and also in proximity to open space and recreational opportunities. So the town's really done a good job of adopting zoning in particular for all three of these districts, and most recently for the Furnace Village Five Corners District. And in my notes I have, some of what it includes, we're talking about mixed use areas, we're talking about residential areas right next to commercial areas, and we're also talking about small scale multifamily, in addition to the large scale development that has occurred with the residential rental units, but also more small scale, where you could have a multifamily unit, maybe with 20 units in it, located in Depot Street. We have a project right now before the planning board that is proposing just that type of development. And that will provide some 2-bedroom and single-bedroom housing. And people who work in the district, we're hoping will be able to live in those areas. So that's one of the solutions to helping with affordable housing. The other thing, the zoning also has resulted in allowing smaller lot, but single-family units being developed. And we're going to see 44 units developed at the old Foundry Street site, and just approved a 20-lot subdivision off South Street. And these will be smaller homes, a little more moderate, hopefully, a little more affordable compared to the current average rate of housing in Easton today. So in all of these, and we look at this, and it was interesting because the chair of the planning board talked about that at the planning board meeting the other day, really articulated creating these multi-family units, but smaller ones within these districts, again, to provide that housing. But all of that provides homes for people, but also provides a market for your businesses. And that's the goal and objective, is really to have a vibrant, economically viable and sustainable community.
Stephanie? Absolutely.
And I would just add, Neil, or for any of the business owners in the room, one of the aspects we're working on is kind of proactively positioning the town to have more of this organic housing grow into the future. But for today, if you have employees or folks who are struggling, we have been also investing in programs to help. So we have committed $250,000 of the American Rescue Plan funds to a tax aid fund. So if you have employees who live here, one of the main challenges we see is that a lot of kind of entitlement programs, the rules are really hard to navigate. The qualification standards are so tough that very few people can actually use them. And so in this case, if you are at 80% of median income in the area, which is a pretty decent number, you're working class, and you pay taxes, you can apply and get up to $1,400 back directly through the town. So if you have employees who live here, pay taxes here, and they're struggling, it's worth reaching out to Corey Ahonen. Everyone thinks of him as the VSO. He is still our VSO, but he's also the Deputy Director for Financial Services for the town. So that's a program that we've invested in. We've also brought on board a grants navigator. Her name's Tracy. She works with Corey. She can help try to support folks who are having challenges just with market-based rent increases. I'm sure if you have employees, I have the exact same response as you, $1,800. I don't know where you find that. There are a lot of folks who, as their leases are renewing, getting hit with huge increases, not just in Easton, but just around Massachusetts and the United States in general. So we have folks who are devoted to, and their entire mission is trying to help connect people with local, regional, state, and federal resources to help with housing security, to keep them where they are so they can keep being, employees of your businesses and members of the community. So reach out to us, please.
Are these programs for residents of Easton only from your office?
Yes.
Okay.
And how are you communicating that?
So the tax aid fund, we've been pushing out press releases. It was as part of our ARPA plan we published, and we are trying to socialize it through social media, ECAP, the press. We did our first round of it. We had only a half of a fiscal year. We committed $50,000, and we got every single dollar distributed. We're doubling that to $100,000 this fiscal year, and we'll be pushing that out through folks that we know, and through those channels. We're happy to get it directly to you and other groups and businesses in the area, and depending on need, reassessing whether we need to up our commitment there during that ARPA period. We also specifically went through our departments who work with folks on financial assistance programs, whether it's the assessors for abatements, Veterans Office, and pulled lists of folks who had applied for and not qualified for typical statutory programs. And we called them directly to say, hey, this might actually be able to help you, and it did in a lot of cases, so it worked quite well.
Of course.
Just one thing before we wrap up, which I'm guessing you're getting. I want to let people know that we have the Discover Easton sign, so please take one on the way out and post it at your location of business.
Neil,
Sorry. Stephanie, thank you very much for giving us that insight on what future development. I just wanted, so I own a real estate brokerage, just in case anyone didn't know that. But I just want to put in context how important it is. The average sale of properties in Easton in the last quarter was $819,000. That's how important it is to try to get some affordable housing. You know, my fear is that sometimes these developments come in and, you know, it starts at 500,000 and you get 4 at 500,000 and then the other 40 are 7, 8, 900,000. So I don't know if there's a way. Obviously, you don't want to have anybody's, you know, business opportunity. But I just think that that number really sticks with me. You know, 819,000 is an average sale price. It's a lot.
I'm going to segue you real quick. So, Neil, thank you for asking the question because it's a business imperative across industry, housing in general. It's a business imperative for local government, but it's also a business imperative for our state leadership. So I know between the governor, lieutenant governor, Secretary Keneally, and all of Margaret's team, they have a number of programs that are at the ready for cities and towns and developers to utilize.
My team teases me. They're like, Margaret knows every housing developer in Massachusetts. So, but I'm on like the economic development side of the house, not the housing side. But you can't talk one without the other, to your point. And I loved how you called it the small A affordable. I like to say workforce development housing, right? People don't want to be stigmatized around affordable housing, yet that's what we need to be, right? Clearly, the medium home value here in Easton. And I know Senator Timmelty is a very good friend of this organization. Each community has a CHODO, right? Community Housing Development Organization. It's like designated, right? This is who can be helpful to your community around the topic of affordable housing affordability. NeighborWorks, anyone know the team from NeighborWorks, Rob Corley? They're amazing, okay? One of the projects they did, they took a blighted property in Quincy. I still serve in the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Do you guys have inclusionary zoning here? 10% affordable? Or something. Okay, so Quincy, across from Quincy Shipyard, long vacant, and they built, in this one, it was a place that was zoned for density, right? I think, I don't know, we're up to like 100 plus units, let's call it. But what they did to pencil the project, so they had mass development as part of the funders, which does taxes and bond financing, helps you borrow more money cheaper, reduce your rate. The banks were in on the deal, but as far as housing, they had X amount of market rate housing units. So the same building that you or I could be spending market rate housing in, they've got various levels of affordability in. And I think that's so important, is you're right. The market on its own, who's going to build affordable housing when you can get top bang for your buck? We're all business owners in the room, right? But there are nonprofit partners who that is their mission, is to serve your community and to create that workforce development. And, I'm happy to facilitate a conversation, whether it's Rob or anybody in that space whose mission as a nonprofit is affordable housing. I really think you probably have some land, you probably have some municipal land, or maybe a place that you could designate that says, okay, this is the kind of corridor where people need that access. Where is it that we can help as a town, as a community, saying we're hearing this need? We want to put that need into effect, and there's people to help you with that.
And what helps us build affordable housing is hearing from the community, because guess how many letters I get demanding that we build affordable housing?
Yeah.
0. Guess when we've talked about building housing, whether it's big A or small A, guess how many complaints we get? So we need, we have 25,000 people in this town. We can't let the affordable housing or the housing production be dictated by 10 people.
Yeah.
We need business owners, we need people who live in the town to reach out and support these things when they come up. So now I have a list of our supporters to start with.
Don't let the haters, this is the best political advice, don't let the haters run your community. Right? Oh, affordable housing, that's not the Easton way. You've got to get it through. I'm with you. It's really hard in messaging it. There's a noisy audience on the other side of the issue. But as an employer is saying, this is it. Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap things up today, I want to extend our thanks and gratitude to Courtney and the team at Northeastern Savings Bank and Claudia for catering today. But Courtney has just a little bit to add around the subject of affordable housing.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to, remind everybody to think of your local financial institutions as your partner, because they, we definitely have lots of opportunities, down payment assistance programs. We partner with Mass Housing and so many other organizations. So it's just not just us, but remember that when you're thinking about your local financial partner and local business partners. So reach out.
Thanks, Courtney. It's all about communication, collaboration, follow-up, so you have conduits, you have folks that are willing and able to work with you, whether you're in the room here or watching at home, or just have a conversation with, business partners in the area. Thank you again, Courtney, for hosting today. John Holbrook, member of the Economic Development Council, Isabella, the team at the Chamber. We're thrilled. We don't want to make this a one-off. Hopefully we can have a follow-up. Maybe Secretary Keneally can come join us with Margaret at a future meeting. Can I have our helper? Do you think we may be able to help us pull a card? Sweetie, thank you so much for being here today. We have 5 cards. Could you help me pick one? Will you pick your favorite card? And then we'll because somebody's going to go to the Red Sox game. Can I see it? Do you want to help me? So Marty Weiner.
So appropriate.
Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. I owe you $5.
So Senator Timilty, Representative Doherty, thank you, our elected officials, our partners. Thank you for being here today, and look forward to future conversations and moving the town of Easton forward. Thank you.